without further ado, let's get started with our opening keynote of the morning. That's Oracle Cloud Infrastructure Strategy. That's with Christopher Marsh-Bourdon, Vice President of Global Financial Markets at Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. Welcome, Christopher. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
How are you?
Very good, thank you. Yourself?
Yes, very good, very good. We had a fantastic first day yesterday, some wonderful feedback, and we are starting strong this morning. So without any further pressure to you, sir, I'll leave you to your presentation. I'll be back with some questions shortly.
Thank you very much indeed. And good morning to you all, wherever you are. It's a very wet London that I'm in today, but hopefully these presentations can help brighten the day up a little bit. So I'm here to talk about our strategy when it comes to Oracle Cloud Infrastructure and the differentiations that we have that will hopefully help you and your business grow further into the cloud itself. So without further ado, I'm going to jump across to our first slide. And so our overriding strategy really has 5 main tenets. We want to build innovative services that really help drive the transformation and modernization of your businesses. We want to build in lots of geographies, and that's really, really central to all the things that we do. For us to do this, we have to build our regions, both public and private, that are very small in size. So our regions can start from in the low teens when it comes to the number of racks that we can get started with, which means that we can really build in a multitude of locations, which we'll come on to later. We're built for mission-critical workloads. Not only do we have a variety of vertically aligned financial services, telco, healthcare applications that can run on our cloud, but we want to make sure that your critical workloads can run on there too. And there's a combination of technologies we brought to bear on the market that really help you as a company do so. I say we build for applications and infrastructure. So this isn't just an IaaS and a PaaS proposition. This is also a SaaS proposition. So all of Oracle's suite of products are actually built on top of our cloud and are distributed via the cloud now itself. And we like to build distributed cloud capabilities. That means that we have a variety of deployments, which I'll cover in future slides, that really enable you to choose the right cloud for your business. But the good thing is, if you build for one, you can build for all of them as well. And that's a really time-reducing impact that we're bringing to the market itself. So that's our overarching strategy. Let's get into some of the details. So large enterprises, they really, doesn't really matter which vertical they're in, they do have the same basic needs. They need to be very secure in the cloud. They need to have a lot of availability and durability and resiliency, so that they can have their workloads up and running on a consistent and constant basis. They need to have innovative technologies. AI, ML is coming to the fore right now. Making sure they have access to GPUs and the right processing is really, really important to enterprises. And they need a rich application ecosystem as well. So these things are really, really important, but that's not the only things that are important to enterprises. They need special compliance, legal and regulatory constraints. I work in financial services and I also do a bit in government as well. And obviously that's a big topic of conversation that's been going on around cloud for quite some time. And they really need that baked into the cloud rather than having to add it on top themselves. A lot of companies need to operate consistently and efficiently around the globe. They need to have locations and data centers or regions that are close to where their customers are. And that's really, really important for large enterprises. Some need to operate in isolation from the internet, but they still need the cloud technologies that enable their business. And some need to restrict access and operations to a designated set of individuals. Sometimes it's based on country or territory. Sometimes it's based on the type of work profiles they've got, like government, for instance. They also need the ability to restrict data and operational information flows to really make sure their data is secure, so they're protecting their customers and their businesses. All right, but other clouds, and I've worked for a number of other CSPs, weren't designed with these minds, and because the reason being is they started, from a very inspirational standpoint. At Oracle, we had a Gen 1 cloud that was, I would say, relatively bare bones, and then around about 7 years ago, we decided to develop what we call our Gen 2 cloud, and we took all of these problems, these propositions together. And we started working out what we needed to do to really develop the cloud that was fit for the enterprise. So we need to solve these technology problems for a wide diversity of applications, companies, etc. We didn't want to have bolt-on features for the enterprise. The enterprise needed to be baked in from the get-go. And we didn't want to create expensive clouds which had fewer services, so that there had to be a redevelopment every time you create an application that had to change the different cloud deployments. So we took these very much in mind for the enterprise itself. And there are really sort of 6 things that we considered to be like the standard for our design and operations. So we wanted one compliance and security bar for all our services. We wanted hardware built to be deployed in different types of data centers, so that if we had, a private cloud or an isolated region or a public cloud, we actually had the same hardware that could go into all of them. We wanted services that could be engineered and operated by others, so that we didn't have to do all the operations depending on the circumstances ourselves. We wanted to enforce standardization across all of our tooling and processes, so that when we did deployments, we could do it very consistently across the board, and we wouldn't have to then sort of have custom deployments anywhere where it was required. I mentioned earlier on that we can, low teens in terms of the number of racks for a region for us. So we knew that we had to build our services small, but they had to scale very quickly as well. And we wanted regions with the ability to be operated in a self-contained manner as well. So these are really kind of, we've got the tenants at the beginning, and these are the sort of the approach we took around how we met those tenants itself. So if you look at our breadth of deployments, I'm going to go through each of these in turn. Most customers will know our commercial public cloud. We have many regions in many countries, and we're continuing to build out these on a consistent basis. And we're in countries where other cloud service providers are. So we recently have built out in Serbia. We are the only cloud service provider in Saudi Arabia, and we're continuing to find demand from countries where they're coming to us and asking for us to build out dedicated public clouds for the consumption within the country itself. We have EU sovereign cloud. This has regions within Europe itself. It is operated and managed only by EU citizens. So requirements such as DORA and EUCS can be met within the actual continent itself, and it's a cloud dedicated to the EU itself. We have government clouds. We have government clouds in the US, in the UK, and Australia that serve public services and sectors, etc., and have different types of workloads that can go in there, including secret and more public-facing ones as well. Dedicated region, or DRCC, is a cloud. We build it out within a customer's data center or within a co-location for them. And this is a private cloud that looks exactly like our commercial public cloud, has all the services. In fact, all of these have the same services across all of these implementations. Some versions of dedicated region are called isolated region, and these are where they are exactly the same, but they do not have connectivity to the internet. And lastly, we have Oracle Alloy. And we've built this specifically based on customer demand. This is a white label cloud. It is OCI underneath the covers, but it is operated by the customer on behalf of their customers. So it's branded down to the individual, our customer, and doesn't say OCI, but it is OCI underneath the covers. But across all of these, they have the same OCI architecture, services, experience, and value. So there's a lot of consistency going on here. Right now, we have 60 regions, public regions, around the globe, as I mentioned earlier on, in a lot of locations where other CSPs aren't based. Not only that, we have 40 plus specialized regions that are either live or in plan at this point in time, across the isolated regions, EU sovereign cloud, government, dedicated region, and Alloy. So we're really growing our footprint as a CSP. Just to go back onto dedicated region, this has all of the services that the public cloud have. There's a shared responsibility between ourselves and the customer. It starts small, as I mentioned, the low teens, but it grows very, very quickly. And for our customers that have adopted this, we're able to roll in additional racks as required, as capacity is needed. This is done in an OpEx fashion, so you actually consume this as you would public cloud, and it's exactly the same pricing as our public cloud as well. In fact, that's consistent across all of our implementations. And we can expand based on the types of workloads that are required. So if our customer is more focused on compute, we'd obviously bring in more compute capacity. If they need more Exadata, we do the same. And if they needed more GPUs, again, that's where we'd focus our expansion capabilities on. Give an example, this was announced earlier on this year, a partnership with Vodafone. They have purchased a number of these regions, helping them to migrate all of their private cloud and their data centers across to DRCC. They're basically consolidating 40 data centers down into 3 dedicated regions. Thousands of Oracle databases are being migrated across. And this enables them to spread their workloads across those geographic regions. And it enables them to really make sure that they're doing the right thing for their customers in a cost-effective fashion as well. So a really big and significant move for them as an organization. Our government clouds, I mentioned that we have them over in the US, the UK, and Australia, serving an absolute multitude of different public sector organizations. Obviously, for that to happen, we have to have the right regulatory certification to ensure that they can be consumed. And I say really, really important for a lot of our customers that we have this in place. Again, the EU sovereign cloud, this was designed to meet those security and sovereignty requirements that came out of the EU, and enabling us to really provide an alternative to public cloud in that region itself, making big impact on the customer base. I mentioned Alloy. Our first customer is Telecom Italia. This will be released, I believe, later on this year. And this is enabling them to have an Italian-branded cloud service provider in country servicing both private and public sector, which is obviously, I think, a very significant milestone for both Telecom Italia and for ourselves as well. So when you look at it, each of these deployments has a consistent set of services. So if you are in DRCC or dedicated region, you get the same level of services you get from the commercial realm. And that it spans, as I say, all of our services. So it gives you that level of consistency. So if you're developing for one of them, you have the opportunity, either as a customer, an ISV, to ensure that you can roll these out across all of our deployment types globally, which I think has a significant impact for everybody. It's not just us saying this. We obviously have a lot of good press around this. Gartner have done a significant amount of analysis around this recently. And we're providing a unique ability to offer this range of services for IaaS and PaaS. But not only that, we can provide SaaS on this platform as well. And again, Oracle DRCC maps up very well against our competitors. We can scale very quickly because we have a small footprint, but our scale can get very large as well. And in comparison to our peers, this means that you get the full level of services within your data center or in your co-location, rather than just having a small subset of services in there as well. But not only that, because we have consistent pricing across all of our deployment types, it means that you understand and know what you're going to be paying up front, rather than having to sort of negotiate specific terms on each of these different deployment types. And with that, I'm going to hand it back.
Christopher, thank you very much indeed. You've done a very thorough job of explaining some of the differences there. For looking at how your strategy maybe differs to others, do you see that as potentially the future for others, having that level of flexibility and adaptability?
I certainly think it's, I certainly think it's going to be it's piqued the interest of other CSPs. I think overridingly providing this ability to have multi-cloud is going to be a significant industry driver in the future. Having just one is going to, or just using one cloud, is not going to be favorable, especially in regulated industries. Concentration risk is a big hot topic that we discuss with our customers on a very frequent basis, and having the ability to have multiple types of deployment types is going to be very useful in that space.
Because one thing I was particularly keen to talk to you about was having that multi-cloud approach, that level of flexibility that's been designed into the strategy. That must have been a pretty significant technical challenge to make that a viable proposition. What insight can you give on how difficult that was to actually assemble as a strategy and as a technical solution?
I agree with you. It was a very concerted effort. I mean, we were looking at the space. I come from our customer base. I joined Oracle a year ago, And I know my strategy as a CIO at that time was we couldn't just choose one. I came from banking, and it's, when you're looking at moving a large-scale enterprise across to the cloud, putting all your eggs in one basket can be a non-trivial exercise, because not only do you have to certify more than one CSP, you then have to work out the interconnectivity between those CSPs as well. Last year, we announced our partnership with Microsoft, our interconnect, which enables the two of them to communicate like they're one cloud. And just recently at Oracle Cloud World in Las Vegas, we announced our interconnect for our Exadata, so that you can effectively have Exadata databases within Azure. They're running within our cloud, but they look like they're running in Azure. And that's another level of integration between ourselves. I think that's a significant area that the market is going to go to in the future, as these types of services become more prevalent across the CSPs. And I also think that it's important that the CSPs do that work together rather than delegating it down to the customer, as we've done with Microsoft.
Speaking of the customer and sort of the human element here, one thing I've been very keen to speak about for our audience today is we talk a lot about the technology, but we also need to talk a lot about the humans that are using the technology. For you, how vital is it that the support, the guidance, the insight is given to the humans who are having to actually use this technology to make sure they get the best of it? Because how often do we see an incredibly ingenious solution to whatever, but people aren't using it to the maximum potential because they don't have the support to do it?
Yeah, I think that's really, really important. Going back to my time in the industry itself, training was pivotal to my strategy. Ensuring that the right people had the right skill sets is absolutely foundational to a successful cloud migration. And so, with Oracle University, we have an absolute range of courses available that our customers and potential customers can consume. I think it's really important to acquire, not certifications, that's nice to have, but acquiring the knowledge is really important to make the right decisions. There's a plethora of different types of services that can serve the same purpose, and ensuring the selection of those services is really key. I would always engage with your CSP, regardless of whoever they are, to make sure you're making the right decisions in that space, and making sure that you make a decision that enables you to go forward. At Oracle, we've based a lot of our technologies on open source. We're a big committer back to open source. And that really makes a significant difference, because a lot of developers and engineers and operational people understand and know these stacks. And so when you come to Oracle Cloud, there's a level of understanding of those tools and those services already within the industry. But I would always recommend going in and actually looking at the training that's available from the cloud service provider, so that you understand the stack as fully as you need to.
A couple of questions on continuous improvement, which I'll divide up for you, because it could be very easy to say, well, we've got this strategy, we've got this solution, this is leading the way in this or the other. How important is that there's continuous analysis of how it's performing, where it sits in the market, to make sure it stays at the cutting edge?
Yeah. You look at this in two things: continuous improvement as an individual, but also as an organization as well. And so, throughout my career, I've always focused personally on making sure that if I'm not in the weeds on everything, because that's, given the breadth of technology we have out there, it's very difficult to do so. But being aware enough to understand where we need to go, where you as an individual need to go to next. I think that selecting best of breed technologies, and I think a lot of those are in the modern age. Open source is a very good starting point. Trying to not select too many closed sourced pieces in services is key to future proofing your applications and your stack. There are occasions when obviously closed source is perfectly an acceptable option, and you've got to have the right trade-offs there. But I personally want to make sure that I'm keeping my finger on the pulse of what's moving forward. And as I say, that's both at a personal level, but also from a customer level as well. I think it's one of those things that you need that constant feedback. And that's one of the things that cloud does very well, is provide you the tools and services to understand and monitor your ecosystem. But you need to do that as both from a service perspective, but also from a learning perspective as well, to ensure that you're getting the best out of yourself and for the firm.
No, I'm not sure if you can see my notes from here, Christopher, because you're referring to sort of the continuous improvement, and what I want to look at is with the customers, because they're always wanting to progress and change things. How important is the solution that you folks provide? How important is it that remains flexible enough to move with their progress?
Yeah, I'm going to say it is important, and I think that the drive to constantly improve should always be taken in relation to the functionality it's providing. There's got to be an ROI in terms of what you're developing. We've been speaking to a lot of customers recently about AI and ML. Clearly, with the enhancements, the innovation that's happening in that space, people are very keen to get on board. But treating it just as a series of science experiments is probably not the right approach. Having a core business outcome is very important. So, from my perspective, you've always got to tie it back to what is the impact to the business. Is it going to be from a financial positiveness? Is it going to just modernize the application stack, which in itself will then allow flexibility in the future? I'm not in the business of technology for technology's sake. I think one needs to tie it very consistently back to the business. So selection of tools that are best of breed is very important, but making sure that you don't lock yourself into something that is not going to help you in the future as well. Pardon me.
A quick question from the audience as well. This one's from Aman. Thank you very much. Speaking about your partnership with Microsoft, Aman's asking about other partnerships. What else have you got ongoing? What's coming up in the future? I'm sure there's only so much you can say, but where are we standing with partnerships?
Well, all I can really say is we have the partnership with Microsoft at this point in time. I cannot comment publicly on any future ones at this point in time.
But always open to suggestion, I'm sure.
Of course, absolutely.
That's as close as you're going to get to a grilling today, but no, it's interesting to know. And looking ahead to the future as well, where do you see the potential and the future of this technology in the next sort of 2 to 3 years, perhaps?
I think as an industry, that multi-cloud is going to become kind of probably one of the driving lights for both our customers and for the CSPs itself. Having the ability to pick the best of breed from each of the CSPs is going to be very important for our customers. As I mentioned, concentration risk is probably going to be the significant driver there, but having flexibility as well. Our deployment types are based on what we see the market going to overall. And enabling our customers to select the right cloud to be in the right location for them. And I think that's going to be, again, another driver for the industry.
Okay, Chris, that feels like a good place for us to wrap things up for our first session this morning. You've gone into great depth, covered a great deal of things, so thank you very much for your time. Really enjoyed your company this morning.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Christopher.